I became absolutely obsessed with this one idea. I thought, right, my child's gut diversity is going to be ruined forever. She's going to have a terrible life. I need to do something about it. So I cannot tell you how close I came to doing vaginal seeding.
You're listening to the Science Baby podcast with me, Layla.
And me, Kim.
We're two nerdy mums who've researched the crap out of parenthood.
Seriously, you do not want to see our Google search histories.
Each episode, we chat about the why behind pregnancy, birth, and everything that comes after.
Because babies don't come with a manual, but with one born every minute, we're pretty sure we can figure it out. I put Stella down for a nap today, which is very exciting because usually she doesn't want to sleep, not on me.
Brilliant. Where is she snoozing?
She's currently in her room on the other side of this wall. Mm-hmm. So she fell asleep on me, but then I transferred her. But usually she's only happy to be transferred at night when she's getting ready for her big sleep.
Yes. Transfers continue to be the bane of existence. Yeah.
Looking ahead to sleeping more independently, trying to figure that out a little bit. But I mean, I should know not to be worried about it as per previous podcast. It's definitely something that's on my mind at the moment.
Yeah. Is that daytime sleeping independently?
And also just kind of wondering if I should be trying to break that association between feeding and falling asleep, just to set us up for potentially being able to have an existence where I'm not going to bed at 7 o'clock with her. But I don't know. Not sure how worried I need to be about it yet.
It's tough because we obviously never breastfed, and so we never had that level of attachment, but he has always had a physical presence for comfort, and that's just one of the things that we have kept going because it feels like that's the battle that I don't really want to fight at the moment. I think all of these decisions you just have to weigh up how much stress it's worth.
And this is probably a good thing, but it's very easy to not worry too much about the fact that they need comfort and attachment, because that's like the one thing that keeps them sane right now. So
it's kind of all they need. Yeah,
it's fine. And how are you?
Good. It's been back to school week. I didn't realise quite how much. He's only 2 and already school timings are ruling our lives because so he goes to a nursery that's attached to a school, and so they've all gone back this week, and it's like big changes, and he's come back with his first week of September germs. Yeah, it's been good. It's just been a bit manic, sort of changing all the schedule around. So he used to go in the afternoons, and now he goes in the mornings. So I can't figure out when I need to feed him, when I need to do my work, all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
But that feels like it might be quite useful to already be in that mode. It's not going to be a huge shock.
Yeah, I've always loved a back to school vibe. I don't know about you, but I've always been a bit of a stationery addict. I love the concept of like having a fresh start, and for me, like the September fresh start has always felt more satisfying. It's like you get a clean planner and you get all new stationery, and I've not been at like in a school or institution for nearly 20 years, but I just quite like the idea of a sort of like, we're going to get started and it's a new season. And
it's a feeling that will stay with us for life, I think. And it's so weird how it's shaped by this completely arbitrary experience of school.
Yeah, exactly. So last weekend we went out and bought him new clothes. He doesn't need new clothes. He's got a cute little uniform, but got him some new clothes and got me some stationery.
I love that you are so willing to admit that you still buy yourself a little fetishy bit of stationery in September at the age of nearly 40. I love that.
You've got to admit to what you love. And for me, it's stationery. One of my $1 million ideas was that I was going to open a stationery shop once upon a time. It still might happen. If everything else falls apart, I would love just like a really cozy stationery shop where you can barely fit in between all the racks of pens and art supplies and things like that.
Like old bookshop vibe.
Exactly, yeah. Like maybe a little cafe in the front, little crafty cafe, and do little workshops. So look out for that in my next reincarnation.
I won't need to look out for it. I will be there. You'll have to remove me from the premises. That's such an amazing idea. My nervous breakdown idea when I worked in telly, we all have a nervous breakdown plan. It was to flee to North Wales and open a coffee shop.
Oh,
I think
wow.
that's still
Why
the
North
thing.
Wales?
Well, I just thought it was really cosy, but it's a lot seasonal than I thought it was. But I think, the climbers and that, apart from the hardcore ones, do tend to disappear in December. So I'm not sure I'd do much trade.
Midlife crisis ideas. I think since having Felix, I've had a new one every month, pretty much. There was, of course, the one-handed keyboard whilst nap-trapped. I became desperate to type things faster than my little thumb could go. The scope for today's podcast is poo.
Poo.
Boop.
One of my favourite subjects.
We've already, I was thinking, we have actually already talked about poo quite a lot in the last 2 episodes, because you've had a bit of a ride with your poo, haven't you, the last few days?
That's true. That I was coming off a very, very high octane poop week. But I'm pleased to say we haven't had quite as much drama this week.
It rules your life, it really does. And a lot of people, through my social media journey, I got the impression that it rules a lot of people's lives. Everybody wants to know about poo, so it seems like a natural, strong early starter.
Definitely. And I do find myself interested and wanting to know everyone else's experience of their infant's poop. I feel like it's the same experience as being a new dog owner. I think dog owners tend to talk to each other a lot about poo, don't they? And it's an interesting yardstick, I think, that we use to judge whether our child is still being a functional human or not.
So what has your experience with poo been thus far? 4 months of solid pooing under your belt, or not so solid, as the case may be?
Been solid since day one, I'm worried. Yes, so we had a pretty textbook journey with poop. The first couple of weeks were fascinating. I was obsessed with Stella's nappies. I was like, it's all the colours turning a bit greener. It's so exciting. But we had a pretty textbook progression of poop in the first couple of weeks. And then we also had the textbook cessation.
Oh, big word.
But yeah, it's good, wasn't it? Did it sound good?
It sounded good. Poop stopped.
I had the textbook poop stopping at almost bang on 3 weeks, which I think was expected in hindsight. I didn't know to expect the poop stopping until I Googled it furiously, saying, why has my baby stopped pooing 4 times a day? Yeah, so, and of course, it turned out that this was a whole new world that she was entering, where she was learning to poop independently. And since then, it's been pretty okay. We have the odd weird random poo, the strange poop we call it. Her poo sort of sometimes turns a bit green, and she has a bit of a weird smelly mucusy episode for a day or so. And we have learnt quite a lot about that and how her gut's developing, and that it's all probably okay. But yeah, her poo is generally okay, although we did have a danger poo today.
What's a danger poo?
I just changed her nappy. She'd had a wee. I had the nappy open underneath her, ready to close. I was just letting her dry a little bit. Explosion right in the nappy, perimeter. It was beautiful. It could have been so terrible, and I saw it come out like a fountain, and it just went straight into the middle of the nappy and was contained. It was glorious.
That is glorious, because the alternative will get you at some point. My husband was changing him on my parents' coffee table, and he didn't manage to catch it, and I've never seen a man more covered in poo. And then you find like a little smear and you think, has this come from a nappy? Has this come out of your bottom? We have had a very similar journey, and it's surprising actually that you say that you furiously Googled the stopping of the pooping, because it was that really began my Googling of parenthood journey. Like, I was just in pure survival for the first 4 or 5 weeks. Didn't know whether I was coming or going, but then the routine that we'd set up in those 4 or 5 weeks, where you would just constantly change poo nappies, and there were just poos in the nappy, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times a day, and then suddenly it slows right down, doesn't it? I can't remember how infrequently it became, but it was literally like once, twice a day. And that is quite worrying when you've just got, you've had 5 weeks of what you deem to be normal. And then, furiously Google, like, why is my baby not pooping? Are they backing up? Are they going to explode? But yeah, that is something that they don't tell you, even if you go through all the antenatal stuff. I found all of the instruction tails off once you've got past the newborn stage, and you don't really get much information. And essentially it was that event that started for me the whole science baby journey, because I started to realize that there were so many changes, so many things that it would be useful to know about. And there was nobody to tell me except for my 3 a.m. Googling. So yeah, it was poo that really led me on this journey.
Wow.
All you lucky listeners have got poo to thank us.
Wow, that is a lot, isn't it?
Is a lot.
What's the longest, top trumps, what's the longest Felix has gone without a poo?
It's definitely like 3 days, maybe 4. How about you?
Stella once went 8 days.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You must have been pulling your hair out.
It was a big day when the poo came.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
When was it? I think it must have been 8 weeks, because we were taking her to the GP anyway for her immunisations. And we mentioned we'd been before about the pooping, and it still hadn't really happened. And I remember having a very grown-up conversation with the GP about this. But inside, I was a little 5-year-old child trying my very hardest not to laugh, because the GP, who's a very funny man, very dry sense of humour, very knowledgeable, he explained to us in great detail that it's not so much an issue if she's gone so long without pooping. You know, we will want to help her along, you know, with a bit of stool softener, which will eventually work and it's all fine. But as a toddler, you want to be a little careful about letting her go so long without pooping, because she'll end up with an anomalously large rectum as a result of the enormous poo.
I can see why you struggled now.
And he told us this absolutely deadpan, because it's really useful medical information, isn't it?
Really important to know, yeah.
But I do not want to tell you how much I tried to stop myself from laughing. And so we're talking about a stretched out rectum, doctor.
A stretched out rectum.
Oh, I could just imagine my child with this big flappy rectum, and it's a visual aid that just keeps on giving.
Oh my goodness! One thing, I mean, obviously we're now in toddler domain of poo, and I'll just give you a little highlight reel of things to look forward to. As soon as they go onto real food, it stinks. Oh my gosh! Be prepared for full-grown adult poos that are like a turd, which in a nappy is no fun at all. We're a few months into our potty training journey, but the poos are now on display to us as they are presented by his rectum, abnormally stretched or otherwise. The poos are on display to us, and it's fascinating all over again. I have found myself
This is a safe space.
Carrying the potty. I found myself carrying the potty around to show people. I am so proud and so fascinated by the turds that this child is producing. There are gigantic ones, and you think, how on earth has that fit into his tiny little body? They're so long. Like today, we got a full snake. It must have been like 9 inches long.
Oh.
I'm like, that is your entire colon. Just laid out like Play-Doh.
He's a tiny child.
That's most of his insides. So we've had length, we've had girth, and that's obviously made me think of the stretched out rectum. We've had colour, texture, we've had rabbit droppings, we've had cow pats, we've had huge gigantic elephant turds. One of my favourite is a Mr. Whippy, which is a perfectly formed spiral.
That doesn't exist in real life.
It genuinely does. And when it's presented to you in a potty, I defy you not to pick it up and try and show somebody.
When you say you carry around the potty to show people, by people, do you mean your husband or do you mean the unsuspecting public?
Well, my husband is used to it. I'll be like, Daddy, you need to go and see this. And he knows what I'm asking. And he rushes down the stairs to come and see. Then my parents are quite long-suffering, so they have a potty in their house. And so when we get an exciting one, I bring it out to show.
Right.
Like a little presentation. I did find myself doing it at nursery. So I went to pick him up from nursery. he had just done one, and I was amazed. And I literally took it back out into the nursery. I was like, look at it. And I was like, Layla, you need to stop.
I mean, it's a grey area. It's a grey area. They're in a care setting.
They are in a care setting, but it's usually the toddlers that they have to deal with the strange and erratic behaviour, not the parents. So I'm so proud of his insides. I'm sure we'll keep coming back to this, but I find it incredible how we have grown these humans that are now like organic machines that can create these marvels of kind of processing, essentially. And when you think about it like that, I find it fascinating. And, put the taboos of poo aside, it's like seeing that progression from baby, it's literally coming through without any processing, to the full range of what a child can produce.
Elephant turds.
I am so proud. If you happen to be near me with my son and a potty, you are fully at risk of being shown what's inside it.
Obviously, I'm being facetious for comedy purposes, but you are a scientist. Science requires observation and attention and recording. So I think you're going about this exactly the right way. So I'm going to shove my churlishness up somewhere. I think this does lead us on to an exploration of the poo evolution, because one thing I remember thinking when Stella was going through the first couple of weeks of poo adventuring, I was just so aware of what must be going on inside her. Her gut is basically this kind of newly built city, and I just kind of imagined it being colonized by all these interesting unknowable characters, and you could see the result coming out of her rear end every day. Every day it was a different color, and I was just amazed by how quickly this colonization was happening and producing changes in her output.
Yeah, it's amazing how it transforms, because essentially poo is the things that the body doesn't need that we can get rid of. Essentially what goes in and isn't used comes back out again. But when they're a baby, all you're putting in for 6 months or so is milk. So how can there be such a big range? So to start with, you've got the dreaded meconium poo.
It's just so much weirder and grosser than I ever expected. And I knew to expect it to be weird.
Yeah, that's the one thing that they tell you to expect. Like, expect the tarry poo. Did your meconium poo come at an appropriate time?
Yes. So the meconium turned up, and my husband, Jake, and I just kind of stared at her first nappy in wonder. We were like, oh, there it is. That's what they've been talking about. And then, it sort of, I can't remember how long it lasted. How long did it last for you before it started to...
The true meconium poo is literally the first poo. And then it's that kind of mixture of a bit of what was left over plus what they're starting to make. I never actually saw our meconium poo because I was still in the hospital recovering from my C-section, and I think my husband and the nurses dealt with it. So I'm a bit sad about that. But yeah, I always found it amazing that this baby is brand new and they're already pooing. And some babies do it in the womb, of course, which can be something to keep an eye on, because if they breathe it in or swallow it, then it can cause some problems. But they haven't eaten anything.
So what is meconium exactly?
It is poo. So all throughout pregnancy, they're swallowing amniotic fluid. Their kidneys are starting to function, and they're processing some of the liquid and weeing that out and then swallowing it again. And it's like some hideous recycling situation. Ugh. But in that amniotic fluid is a whole load of stuff that's just floating around. You've got dead cells from mum and from baby. You've got hair. So when they're growing, babies are covered in that very fine hair. So that comes off and they're sort of swallowing that. And so it's just loads of organic waste that's building up. And you can kind of think of it a bit like a swamp inside your baby's tummy that's been going for as long as they've had a tummy. And so, if I'd have been sitting on a poo for the better part of 9 months, I think it would look quite a lot like that.
Yeah.
So it's quite merciful that it comes out in one go, more or less.
Absolutely.
Did yours, was it sort of quite quick to pass?
So my daughter was delivered in the morning, and I'm pretty certain that very quickly after her first feed, her meconium poo turned up. I do remember it being quite early in that day, that it first happened. And it was just fascinating. And I believe that the first milk, quote unquote, that you produce, the colostrum, part of its function is to clear that meconium from your baby's system in the first hours or days. So obviously the meconium has a certain tarry appearance, but how can you expect the poo to change once that goes out of the system?
Our experience was that first poo was very black and tarry, and then they're still getting that out of their system, so the first few poos are quite nasty, but then you start with if I remember rightly, you get like a green poo, which is weird. Like, where the heck does green come from? And then gradually it does the colour. It's like a whole spectrum of poo, isn't it? It's the rainbow of baby poo. It goes into a spectrum of curry colours. So we're going from like a green pesto-y colour all the way through into sort of oranges. And you're more in the thick of it literally right now, but baby poo is traditionally kind of more pale, sort of yellowy orange curry coloured than your traditional, the brown that you might expect. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I very much had that same experience, or rather Stella very much had that same experience.
I'm sure you had it as well.
Yes. So at the moment we are in a calmer, mustardy, kind of dark, saturated yellow-orange territory. We went through the kind of khaki green transition. I think they call it a transition poo. But we have intermittent green poos even now, which I think is a whole load of kind of transitory things to do with, the fact that her gut is still maturing. Her feeding habits may be going through something at the time, meaning the milk's a slightly different, mix of stuff. That's a whole thing that we would love to unpack soon. But at the moment it is kind of a mustardy, quite a good healthy texture at the moment.
Delicious. How would you describe the texture?
Thick, unset angel delight.
Yum.
So before it goes moussey, but it's quite thick. And sometimes seedy, which I know is a very healthy thing with the undigested bits.
Very nice.
In it.
Yep. Do you get any curds?
Yeah.
I remember we got some curds. We were formula fed after 2 months, but we'd get a surprising variation considering that the formula was always the same, which made me sort of really alerted me to what was going on inside his stomach at any one time. It's essentially chemistry, isn't it? So it's all organic chemistry going on inside this intricately complicated body. It becomes a combination of what goes in, comes out, plus the big important factor, and you used this word earlier, which I absolutely love it, like a city growing inside their bodies.
Essentially, the way I picture it is their gut is being colonised by this, what we will eventually call their microbiome. So essentially they've got this city that's fresh and new, and over time, just because of them now existing in the world, they acquire this microbiome of different species of bacteria and all sorts of things that then become part of the function of their gut for the rest of their lives. And of course it takes time for that to establish and to mature and to reach an equilibrium. So that's what's going on in those first hours and days and weeks and months eventually.
I find it absolutely fascinating. Like, while they're growing inside you, the placenta is kind of I like to think of it as the train station or the sorting office of the of the mother baby transit system.
Are we going to push this metaphor to the absolute ends of its life?
I think we're already there, to be fair. But the placenta is responsible for allowing through all of the things that the baby needs, plus a few things that they don't need. Various molecules pass between mother and baby. And the placenta is this incredible specialised organ that it just supplies the baby with everything they need, gets rid of all the waste. It's incredible. But the one thing that they don't get from their mom is any of that gut microbiome while they're growing. And so essentially what comes out is a baby with no bacteria in their gut whatsoever. And we need bacteria in our gut. They contribute to breaking everything down. And so I find it incredible that there's literally nothing until the moment that they exit the mother's body. And what's even more remarkable is that the way in which they exit the mother's body massively changes the kind of gut microbiome that they have. So if you thought that talking about poo was bad enough, it's just going to get so much more personal, intimate. So if you had a vaginal birth, then the baby is literally coming out through your vagina, which is next to your anus. You've got a lot of stuff going on. You've got a lot of fluids. You have got bacteria down there that you don't even notice. But there are a lot of bacteria. There's a lot of stuff going on down there. And when baby comes out through there, they get covered in those bacteria. And those bacteria are what then migrate into their body to set up camp, if you like, in what will become the city of their microbiome. If, like both you and I did, you have a C-section, then of course they're not naturally exposed to any of those vaginal microbes. And so the only exposure to microbes they have is to your skin microbes. And that's one of the reasons that skin to skin is so important, because that helps to fuel their gut microbiome. And so they've done scientific studies and they've seen that the bacteria that are inside babies that are born by C-section are fundamentally different to the babies that are born vaginally. And there is some indication that the vaginal births create a more diverse microbiome, and it's thought that a more diverse microbiome contributes to better gut health through later life. But this is where it kind of gets a bit fuzzy, isn't it?
Oh, I became absolutely obsessed with this one idea. It was kind of percolating in my head when I was writing my birth plans, your list of preferences, because I did, even from the very beginning, I made sure I had one for C-section, even though that wasn't my first choice for delivery. I said, right, I need to do this thinking in advance in case we need to pivot. And in the end, about a week before Stella was delivered, we did decide to have a planned C-section. So then I was like, right, we're locked into this. I need to really worry about this microbiome issue, because it was something I became utterly obsessed with. I thought, right, my child's gut diversity is going to be ruined forever. She's going to have a terrible life. I need to do something about it. So I cannot tell you how close I came to doing a vaginal harvest.
Please elaborate.
What's it called?
Vaginal seeding.
It's not called a harvest, Layla.
I'm going to call it a harvest.
I cannot tell you how close I came to doing vaginal seeding with Stella.
So can you tell us what vaginal seeding involves, please?
So, vaginal seeding is a avenue that you can go down if you know you're having a C-section, and so you won't have the opportunity to seed your child naturally with the microbiota in your birth canal. Rather, what you can do is essentially do it yourself or get someone to, I'm going to say it, harvest your vaginal microbes with a cloth or something probably much more fit for purpose, which you will then use later once your baby is born to populate them with your vaginal microbes. So essentially you're transplanting those species that live in your birth canal and putting them onto your baby.
Essentially you have a wipe down there and then you wipe it on their face.
And ultimately it was social anxiety that made me not do that. I gather it is done, and I think absolutely brilliant. More power to you. I shied away from it when I looked into a little bit more, and my interpretation is that on balance, the evidence isn't there yet. There's no really convincing studies that demonstrate a genuine impact yet. Not to say it's not there, it's just that we don't know about it yet.
I mean, I had no idea about it until afterwards, and I'm quite glad, because I'm not entirely sure I was entirely sane throughout my birth experience, and I definitely would have given it a go. And on balance, and having dug into some of the papers and research, I think I would come to the same conclusion as you, which is, like with much of parenting research and baby research, there are studies that show that it could help, but they are small. They are case studies where you look at some stuff that's already happened and then sort of try to compile a big group of people that have had similar experiences and their results. Or you can have a controlled, randomized clinical trial. From a scientific point of view, these clinical trials are infinitely better because you are controlling as many factors as possible. So those studies which found that there was a difference in microbiomes if somebody has gone through vaginal seeding, it could be the vaginal seeding that's helped, or it could be that they are living a lifestyle where they're doing other things to promote their child's gut health. And because that information is collected after the fact, it's quite difficult to get to the bottom of what is the actual cause, which is why the clinical studies are sort of the gold standard of research that you want to look for. And there have been none.
And especially with a subject like this, where although it's a very well studied area, how and to what extent you can influence your gut microbiome through your life is still, full of holes and
misunderstanding.
Exactly. So as you say, it's really difficult to control for variables that you're not yet aware of. So it's no wonder that actually the jury's out on vaginal seeding and whether it's worth doing. But it'd be really interesting to hear from people who have or who've looked into this.
I feel like it could be more widely accepted if there was a more socially acceptable way of going about it, because it's like wiping your excess fluids on your brand new baby. It just sounds gross.
If it were more socially acceptable and talked about as a normal thing, I probably would have done it because in my head there's not that much risk, and the only thing I could be doing is giving my kid a slightly more diverse set of microbes, which is probably a good thing.
And, let's not forget that vaginal births are overwhelmingly the norm and have been overwhelmingly the norm for most of human history. So we shouldn't be afraid of doing it like that. That is how our babies get their gut microbes, but somehow doing it artificially still feels like a step too far. And it's a bit of a strange psychological bind we've got ourselves in.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
We've got the gut microbe. They've started to process the milk that's coming through, and its colour is changing as a result of the inhabitants of that city changing. And you can't really predict that. That's why the colours are all over the shop. But you can be pretty sure that your baby's going to be pooing, and you're going to change so many pooey nappies in those early weeks, aren't you? Mm-hmm. And also, there's so much of it. You mentioned that you've had to hose down a car seat. Yeah. A colleague of Doug's was telling me how he had a punami explosion that came all the way up to the shoulder.
Ooh,
that is quite intense. And so they're expelling poo with frequency, force, and variety.
So why is there such frequency? What's the driver behind that?
As I understand it, their whole bodies are underdeveloped as they come out. They're still figuring out how to coordinate these bodies. And there's this thing called the gastrocolic reflex. What happens is when you eat something, it stretches your stomach. That will send a signal to the lower gut, the bowels, to go, okay, now it's time to vacate. And so essentially, even though it might not necessarily be like a completely occupied conveyor belt, as soon as your baby's putting food into their mouth, as soon as they're having a feed, stretching their stomach, and their body's saying, okay, it's time to make space, let's get it out. And so because they're feeding so much, their little stomach is going up and down all the time. Their bowels are going like, vacate, vacate, vacate constantly. That's what's going on in their bodies early on. But as their bodies and brains mature, and so much of this is down to actually neurological development rather than like physical development, they are able to have a little bit more control over that reflex. The stomach to bowel signal is a reflex. It's like stomach is full, must empty bowel. But actually, as they mature and develop, there becomes a little bit more of a lag, a bit of a built-in buffer. And that's what we experience around, well, you said it was 3 weeks, 3, 4. I think for us it was close to 5 weeks. That buffer starts to set in that says, actually, we don't need to completely just shove everything out at once. The body can afford to keep the stuff in the bowel a little bit longer. Maybe it's a chance to extract more nutrients, get more substance out of what's in the small intestine before it all gets shoved back out. And so what we see is that the gastrocolic reflex is becoming less sensitive. It's not immediately in out, it's in, and then at some later date, or maybe when the stomach reaches a level of fullness, it's sort of triggering that out signal. But what that looks like on the outside is, oh crap, my baby has suddenly stopped pooping.
Yeah, because our baby has to go from not needing to worry about that because the reflex of their body takes care of it. And suddenly this is now something they have to take the wheel for, which must be very confusing and difficult for them.
Well, considering they literally don't have any control over the limbs that they can see yet, suddenly they're having to learn how to control things that they don't even know they have inside their bodies, right?
I know, it's something we take for granted, but it turns out pooing is a learned skill. I think it involves two main, I mean, obviously more than that, but two main areas of muscles. It's your abs, it's your core, and it's your bum or your pelvic floor and all the muscles down there by the exit. And essentially it's you have to learn to squeeze one in one way and then relax another in a different way in order to kind of push everything out and allow it to exit, which turns out is as complicated as it sounds if you're trying to learn how to do that for the first time. You put it a brilliant way, which was learning how to tap your head and rub your tummy.
Yeah, you're literally trying to do the same body region. You're trying to do two separate things. You think about the compound motion, the combined action. You're like, okay, now it's time to poo. I'm going to let it all go. But you're not actually letting it go. You are doing this kind of belly dance, this role of contract and relax at the same time. And so it's not so much consciously learning, but like getting into the rhythm of it and getting the right rhythm of muscular contraction. It's sad, stressful and hilarious trying to watch a baby like figure out that dance.
Yeah, what was your experience?
We had a lot of red faces. So much red face because I think he was just contracting like everything at once. So he's like pushing really hard, but he's also clenching his anus really hard. He's clenching his butt really hard. And well, nothing's going to come out if you're holding everything. You've got to squeeze that bit, let that bit go.
We had a lot of grunting. We called Stella the grunter for a while. It was hilarious. And one thing that Stella would do, she was trying to do something. She was onto something, but hadn't quite figured it out. She would throw her legs forwards and straight really hard. She knew she had to do something with her muscles at that end of her body, but she hadn't quite figured out. I think maybe she was tensing something she should have been loosening. And actually what really helped, and what the only piece of useful advice to come out of this podcast probably, is bicycle legs. That was what I was told. You want to just give them a bit of a bend in their legs, maybe by pushing up on their feet with your hands, and that allows them to get into a better position to kind of relax that lower part of their bodies. And it works with us, getting into a position where we can bear down to poop ourselves, with our legs bent is just anatomically a better position to be in. So that's what helped Stella a lot when she was struggling. But yeah, left her own devices, she was just whacking her legs out in front of her and it was not helping her. Most frustrating, I imagine.
It must have been quite the signal that a poop was on its way.
Yeah.
You've got the legs. We've got the legs.
The beacons are lit. Yeah. But she figured it out in the end. And now it's amazing. It's amazing now. She just does it effortlessly, as evidenced this morning when my face was that close to her and it just came out without warning. Normally we know it's on its way. But this one was particularly seamless, which is worrying.
Once they get it, it is quite impressive how well-coordinated muscles can project a soft poo quite some distance.
And this is why the fact that they have to learn the skill of pooping is my favourite baby fact, is because it really opened my eyes to the plethora of things that these neurologically underdeveloped babies have to learn how to do that I'd completely taken for granted as being just an automatic bodily function. I just think it's incredible. I mean, the things that they have to come up against when they've only been on this planet for 3, 4, 5 weeks is remarkable. The changes going on.
The way that they tackle it as well, I just find it fascinating how each child processes it in a different way. They approach it differently. Some get very frustrated, some get angry, some just pick it up in their stride. And Surely that's a lesson to all of us going through life, that we all have lessons to learn and we can go about it in different ways, but we'll probably all get there eventually in our own way.
Hey, listener, when you next feel like you're a failure in life, just remember, you can successfully poop.
And you learnt to do that. Yeah, all by yourself.
You have at least one skill.
You can do great things. As you change your baby's nappies, are you as grossed out about it as you thought you would be pre-baby?
No. No, I'm not.
I think in part it's just one of those things that you have to do, isn't it? And anybody who's not yet had a baby might think, oh, I don't want to have to be dealing with poo every day, like clearing up poo 8 times a day. That doesn't sound like any fun. But, it's one of the normal things.
It doesn't smell that bad, in my opinion.
It doesn't smell bad. Well, my baby's poo doesn't smell bad anyway.
Yeah, my baby's different.
And so they have actually done a study about this where a piece of research, a controlled trial, where they got mothers to sniff dirty nappies. I don't know who is signing up to these trials. And they found that mothers were actually able to, with surprising accuracy, identify the smell of their own baby, or at least report that their own baby's poo didn't smell as bad as others. And we think that that is an evolutionary adaptation, basically, because we are wired to be disgusted by poo, because poo can contain some nasties, it can contain parasites, it can contain toxins. And so in general, handling poo is not a good thing to be doing. And so our bodies have evolved to be repulsed by the smell of that poo. But what happens in early motherhood and, in that bond between a mother and baby is that the smell of your baby's poo, which is produced by their microbiome, which is in some way similar to yours, doesn't repulse you as much as other poos. And again, that's thought to be a survivalist tactic on the side of the baby, because they need mum to care for them and not be repulsed by all of the poo that they're doing. And so to cement that bond between mother and baby, that revulsion is kind of suppressed with that particular cocktail of smells. Have you had chance to smell anybody else's nappies?
I have, and I 100% agree, anecdotally, that they all smell horrific, and my baby's nappies smell like roses. I think also baby poo, because my baby is, only 4.5 months old, still exclusively fed milk. So we haven't got to that slightly more wild solid poo territory yet.
What are you looking forward to in the world of poo?
Looking forward is a strong word, but I'm looking forward to her poo changing again as we start to experiment with solids. I'm interested to see how her gut responds to that change. And, just kind of following it day by day, seeing what her gut city does to it.
Gut city.
And I may well turn into your kind of weirdo, where I will be running into the streets with a nappy with a strangely shaped poo and making people look at it. I'm fully expecting that to happen. And how does it change now that Felix is experimenting with all the solids, now that he's a big grown-up?
I'm just amazed at how much poo he's able to make still. Like, he's not a big eater. He doesn't eat that much, but he is producing poo like it's going out of fashion. In theory, it's like 1 a day, but he usually spreads it out into 3 individual ones. Yeah, I spend a lot of time sitting next to him whilst he tells me about the poo he's just done, which is great.
I think that's great. And it's a good sign that your son clearly has a healthy and diverse gut microbiome, despite
my lack of vaginal seeding.
Despite the lack of your selfish refusal to harvest your own vagina. That's not going in. That was too far.
Oh, it's in.
My apologies.
That's it for this week's episode of the Science Baby podcast.
We'd love to hear your poop experiences. All the weird stuff welcomed.
Join the chat on Instagram. Just search for The Science Baby.
And let us know what you think of the podcast so far. Your feedback really matters.
See you next time.